So T2 passed away. What the fuck? If anybody understands what that is a reference to, you need to fucking log off, man. Well, good old T2Darlantan, the guy who essentially kickstarted my presence on YouTube, my visible presence anyway. I was always on YouTube basically since the beginning of the site, but starting to make videos and whatnot back in the old days, basically mostly as just therapy. It wasn't necessarily to do anything or make anything interesting. It was just self therapy at the time, and that's sort of what the products people put out there were. It was mostly just blogging and talking to each other and sort of interpersonal connections between shit. You remember video responses? Yeah, that's the period where I lived in, and I liked it. I liked seeing people talk to each other through video responses. That was a fun time. Because interpersonal, conversations between other humans in authentic ways is incredibly impossible to find nowadays, and it's mostly just the culture that's moved on from it. You can sway the culture up and down, left and right, but if the people, the users, aren't interested in it, then it's just not going to happen. Because like all the old forums and the old internet days are still there. Nobody's using them. Everybody's using fucking Twitter and Reddit, and that's it. So that's where we are nowadays. But T2Darlantan came up in the days when people actually talk to each other. And that's sort of, the kickstart of everything for me, anyways. I don't really know what I should be saying here because I personally was clearly not one of T2's guys. I never was, never kind of really wanted to be. He always a little bit irritated me in a lot of ways when I was just in calls with him because it never sounded like he was too interested in what other people were saying. It was always what he wanted to talk about. That was really it, though. It was just kind of a vibes thing with T2. I kind of knew we wouldn't really get along that well. I always appreciated his content, and I always, enjoyed, seeing what he was up to, and I was always kind of within arm's reach of T2, basically since the Skype days. But this isn't really about my experiences with T2. I mean, maybe there's going to be a couple of those here and there, but it's mostly just like my observations of T2 and how weird it is that he's not here anymore. So, in good old T2 fashion, let's just start rambling about shit and hope that people are interested in it. This isn't really the type of content that does well on YouTube anymore, and it kind of never really was, but it was always a lot more viable back in the day. Because you could just, people weren't really doing podcasts back then, and, you needed something to listen to while you were fucking grinding your ass off against gnolls in the stupid Woodpaw Forest or whatever the fucking World of Warcraft, so you'd throw on a T2 video and just listen to him talk about, the weird shit he saw at the store or whatever that day. Those were always like really interesting, comforting times for me. One of the very first videos I ever saw of T2, I don't even remember what it was, man. I used to remember it very clearly, but I do remember it was about cereal, and it was like bootleg cereal. He just like, I was looking up some weird shit one day, like I was typing in like, cause, when you're a kid and you're bored on the internet back in those days, you just look up shit like, what's this cereal that's like a Chinese brand, off brand of this cereal? And then you looked it up, and I think I did that one time, and his video came up, and I watched it, and I was like, oh, he plays World of Warcraft, cool. And then I learned what World of Warcraft was, got into that, and whatever, right? I'll always remember my first impressions of T2 was very simply, holy shit, this guy's a nerd. Like that was like my very first gut reaction to seeing this guy, especially seeing some of the thumbnails in his Warcraft stories, where it's just like this round-headed, like actual fat guy with really thick glasses and like kind of like a balding haircut, sitting alone in his room talking about World of Warcraft. I was like, Jesus Christ, man, what a stereotype! I didn't even know really what stereotypes were back then, and I just kind of like instinctively knew, man, this guy is really playing it up, isn't he? And then I kind of my initial thought was like, this guy is probably gonna suck. This is gonna be weird and like nerdy and stupid. And then you just like you go in back then with an open mind and you think about things and you're like, maybe this guy's not so bad. Maybe there's a lot of common ground between him and we can relate on a lot of certain things. And I obviously did because I stuck around for a very, very long time just watching all of his videos. I think he was probably the first actual YouTuber that I was like obsessed with, and I was like, damn, I can't wait to watch a T2 video. Even though again, there was never that much like interesting things happening in his videos. He would sometimes do little edits here and there of like splicing in Warcraft footage or like a picture or whatever, and he had like his outro. But generally speaking, it was just him in his apartment, and it was kind of like a weird, cozy feeling. Like, wow, this guy's really just living a life that is, perpendicular to mine, but he's doing it in such an open way that it's like kind of endearing. Because he would talk about all of his dreams constantly that he was having, just like the day to day dreams he would have. He'd talk about just going out or like his crazy neighbors or whatever, right? Just anything that happened to him that was interesting, he would talk about. A lot of people, when they think of T2, especially lately, I've been in the Discord server for a while here, and people are always talking about, like, man, the pranks he used to pull, or, oh man, he was really good at getting attention here and there. That was never really what I cared about T2 for. Like the my last video with the gun in the mouth thumbnail, back when thumbnails weren't really a thing. That's like one of his most popular things ever. And he was like, he was genuinely really like, that was the video that pulled people in to his channel and his style of commentary. But really, like those Diablo hoaxes and the fucking Warcraft stories and all those things, those aren't really what pulled me into liking T2 as a person. Because I really like T2 as a person. I never really got along with him that well. I don't think he really liked me that much at a certain point. But I never really I never went out of my way to fuck with him or anything like that. And I was always like within arm's reach of him. I was always like a server hop away from, I knew people who could get me into the server and whatnot. I just never really I never really felt that comfortable being in a call with him. That's really all it came down to. I liked watching him. I liked listening to him, explore things in his very unique way. And it's not necessarily that I learned how to think from T2, but I learned how to think like T2 from the sheer amount of videos that he made, and just like his open thought process on a lot of certain things. And it honestly, it's really interesting how much I agree with him and how much I disagree with him. I don't think I agree or disagree with many people that much, and I do both with him, which is incredible. A lot of people, when people pass away, they get sad about things, and I'm certainly sad about things as well. I'm not gonna lie. This has shocked me quite a bit, but I'm mostly just kind of stunned, because this is not the first thing that I've lost lately. I've been experiencing personally a lot of change, a lot of kind of heartbreak, a lot of death, a lot of permanent sort of shape shifting to just my overall life and perspective and stuff. So this doesn't really individually hurt that much for me, because there's many, many other things that have hurt me way deeper than this. But for some reason, the fact that T2, which is just somebody who I've kind of always not looked up to per se, but definitely looked in the direction of for the last almost 20 years, the fact that he's just gone, and it was very sudden, and there was really nothing that anyone could do, and the fact that he gave up so quick, I don't know, there's something about that that's like really, there's something that kind of makes it profound in a way that not many other things in my life have, because he never really felt like he was comfortable. You know what I mean? I have a lot of anecdotal stories to talk about with T2, and I don't know how long this is going to go. I really don't. I don't even know what my thought process is on all this. I don't know. I have nothing organized at all. But that's kind of how he was as well, right? So whatever. We'll do it live. That's one of his favorite things. I remember back in the day. Fuck it, we'll do it live. I remember there was this one video that he made where he was talking about 9/11. And again, this is sort of just how T2 was. He would always take really controversial topics and sort of play devil's advocate for a position that he didn't necessarily hold, but he would always explore the reasoning of, just so he could understand the reasoning of it. You know what I mean? And I remember this, one of the earliest memories I have of T2 that I just kind of remember being like, oh, he's going to get banned for this, was he was talking about, he had that, I don't even know if this is from 9/11 or anything like that, but there was that one audio clip that's kind of stopped being circulated these days, but it was very, very popular in like the late 2000s to late 2010s, where it was just like, you have to say that you're okay, but you're not okay, and everything is all wrong. Whatever. There was some lady talking like that, and I think it was from like a 9/11 like news reel or something like that. But I remember he played something like that, and he had like a Gary's Mod thing of like people jumping off of a giant thing that he made, and it was smoking and whatever. And I remember like he had that up while like it was at the end or in the middle or at the start. I don't even remember of another video where he was just like talking about how the 9/11 jumpers were retarded or something, and he was just like his reasoning for it, which is a very T2 reasoning for it, was if the towers didn't fall and the fire was put out and you were able to walk out of the towers, you would look really fucking stupid for jumping out of the towers for no real reason if you were just going to get saved. Again, I don't think he took into account the smoke inhalation, the absolute like death that you would be sitting in for hours and hours and hours on end if you were to stay up there. The heat, the the gases, the gaseous fumes, as well as the smoke inhalation. There's just a lot of environmental problems of being up there. But T2 didn't really like. I think he understood that, but he wasn't really like putting any emphasis on that for the specific point of saying that they were retarded for jumping. Just a lot of fucking funny things like that T2 would always just do, kind of straight faced. One that I didn't even realize was like an actual thing was actually lately on his channel that he was kind of on these days. He made a video called like "Why the Haka is Stupid," which is like that New Zealand Maori, oh Japa with the fucking bug eyes and the tongue out and whatever, and it's just stupid as fuck. And I kind of agreed with him on that. Like, yeah, okay, the Haka is stupid. It looks stupid. It is stupid. They whatever they're saying isn't very scary, and that the point is to be scary at someone's wedding and shit. Like, it's just stupid. The Hawk is stupid. I agree with him on that. Whatever. I didn't watch the full video, but I just saw that like a million people were like hating on him for it, and he disabled his comments and stuff. And I don't know. It just seemed like that was a controversy, a mini controversy, because he clearly had way bigger ones than that. And my voice cracked. I don't know why. I guess it is late. It's so weird how I have been on the internet literally forever. Like, since as long as I can have memories in my brain, I've been just on the internet. One of my earliest memories of the internet was sitting on ICQ with the fucking talking to some literal random stranger whose username I can almost see in the corner of my mind, because I was always so hyped when that person came online and we would chat about shit. I was like 7 fucking years old at that point. Not even. I think I was like 6. I was like 6 years old talking to this person. My mom was very lax with the rules around the internet at the time because she didn't even really know. But I was talking to this fucking random guy with an ICQ with the little uh-oh sound that come up whenever you fucking got a message, and I can do that better. Uh-oh! Whatever. It sounded like that. You know what I mean, right? And I used to like love that sound because I meant there was a random person on the other side of the world potentially who was talking to me through text, and I knew how to read at that point. And I was like, holy shit! If I know how to type, and I know how to read, I can literally talk to anybody in the world. And I thought that concept was so sick at the time. And I don't know if that's like how kids view it nowadays, but like at the time it was like a big deal to everybody. So I kind of like got that third party hype. But nowadays, it's literally just like part ingrained in the culture where you can talk to anybody at any point, at any time, at any reason, on any platform, basically. And I don't know, nobody gets hype about that shit anymore. So I don't know if kids actually care about that. But for me, who kind of grew up in those times, who has literally been on like, I've just been a part of the internet culture basically since then. I do have to say, even the albino black sheep days, even the stupid.com days, even the fucking You're the Man Now Dog and Gaia Online days and all that old shit, Newgrounds, whatever. I don't think I've ever seen anybody quite like T2 before. Now, that's not to say that his lifestyle is something that I haven't seen before, because honestly, I've more or less adopted it where I'm fat because I'm fat and gay, and I do fat things because I'm fat every day, right? I love just not doing anything and playing video games and sitting around and learning about shit and reading shit by myself and, just kind of doing my own thing. I really love that. partially stems from antisocial behavior, I imagine, but a lot of it is also I just don't like interfering with other people, and I certainly don't like it when other people interfere with me. So a great way to reduce the chances of that happening is to just simply fucking lock yourself up and don't do anything and don't talk to anybody and do your own thing constantly, right? But with T2, you could kind of tell that he was lonely and he wanted somebody to share life with. I will go back a couple of things here. I don't really want to get too personal with this because I could go way deep with this and I really should not. But while I was, for nefarious purposes, scrolling OkCupid one day back before you needed verification for everything, I came across a profile called KY Atheist, and it was T2Darlantan in the Grandmaster Flash Drive outfit. And he basically all but stated that he doesn't expect anything from this and that he's pretty secure not being with anybody, but he would like that if he could. And he basically ended his entire profile by saying, "This is basically my last Hail Mary to find anybody to spend my life with. And if it doesn't work out, then I'm going to go be a hermit in the woods until I die." And I suppose nothing happened with that. There was another video posted in the Discord earlier where he changed his relationship status on Facebook, apparently at one point, to in a relationship or something, or seeing somebody or whatever. And I had no idea about that. I don't know about that at all. He never really talked about significant others besides the Gilmore saga at one point, but that was something that was requested to be taken down, so he did. Another thing about the T2 situation that is obviously terrible, it's genuinely terrible, is that apparently T2's brother, who I didn't even know he posted videos with, but he did like take a whole bunch of like hunting video with his brother at one point, and I kind of watched that and I was like, wow, I didn't even know about this. His brother also passed away not that long ago. I believe it was an overdose or a suicide or both. But I do remember T2 saying that his brother, quote, and I quote you, he said this, his brother suicided out, end quote. To put it simply, that was easily one of my favorite T2isms that me and my friends kind of picked up over the years. It's just suicided out is a very interesting way to say that about your flesh and blood, whatever. But a lot of people in the Discord, very, obviously they're going to be like, damn, his parents now have had to bury both of their kids. And that is terrible, right? That sucks so much. But for whatever reason, when it comes to stuff like this, I really can't get too bogged down by the emotions of things because I'm just like not very emotional as a person. I cry quite often, but that's just because my tear ducts are super fucking sensitive and I can cry on cue. So any little twinge in my brow makes me fucking cry. I don't want to come across like I'm not affected by this because I definitely am. And it's I'm definitely not the person to be talking about T2 or anything like that. It's just he definitely was a big part of my life. Not like the biggest part of my life or anything like that, but I still have all these old recordings saved to CDs of all things of me just sort of like therapeutically talking about my life day to day back when I was like in my mid-teens, just holding a shitty little lapel mic that was like not, it had the lapel strap broken on the back, so I had to hold it in my hand. Those are the days, man. When I didn't have access to the internet during the day and I was left at home by myself, I would just talk to myself for, sometimes hours on end. And that was all inspired by T2 because that's just what he did. And at the time, I didn't make YouTube videos, but I certainly watched them. And he was at the very top of the list. Every single time he would make a video, I would watch it. It didn't even really matter what it was about. I would watch it. One of the only people, lifetime, that I've ever done that with. Just really a fascinating character. Really interesting person. Really, he also attracted a lot of very interesting people too, which is I guess, par for the course. The one thing about T2, I guess that I'll put it out there, is that he never really evolved his sense of humor that much. I mean, for all the like, he was up to date on memes and terminology and like politics and all that shit, because that's just that's part of his world that he was just in. But like the way he would talk, he would just sort of not really evolve very much. Like I believe he was making Christopher Walken watch up my ass jokes like not even 8 years ago. Like that shit sort of fell the fuck off in I don't know 2010, 2011. That was like ancient history by 2010, and T2 was still doing it. It's just something that he kind of liked doing. I guess he had these little mannerisms that were hard to shake, and it's endearing for sure. But it's just one of those things I noticed about him. When it comes to regrets, because usually when people pass away, you always think, okay, well, what regret is there that relies on that person being alive to resolve, right? For me with T2, I don't think there's really any regrets. I guess one big regret I have is that I didn't talk to him before he passed. I didn't let it be known that I was like around and willing to talk or whatever, or be like, hey, sending good thoughts, good vibes to him and whatever. Because I was trying to be positive around the whole thing. I kind of saw the writing on the wall with it, so I didn't want to say anything. But like, I was around and I was participating in shit. And I was adding hearts and little fucking emojis and shit in the Discord server on little posts and stuff. And I was trying to keep it a little bit light and whatever. It's usually not like me. I'm usually very fucking cynical and just bitchy and annoying and grumpy all the time. So, it's a little change of character for me at least. Um, what was I talking about? What the fuck was I talking about? Regrets, right? Regrets. Yeah, he didn't seem to be very receptive to well wishes at the very end. I would always sit around and wait for him to respond to things because it was one of those rare fleeting moments that I had in my life where I kind of could reconnect a little bit with my younger self and be like, damn, T2 might put out some content soon, and that content for me was like updates on how he's doing, because that was the most interesting thing about him to me at that point because I wanted to know if he was doing okay. And I'd kind of wait and refresh his server every once in a while, and scroll up, scroll down, see what he would say, and search his name or whatever. And I could kind of tell just with the fucking sheer amount of well wishes and just like people sending their regards to him and stuff, that one more in addition to that wasn't going to add anything or take anything away. So I just never said anything. I was there. I was there in spirit. I'm observing. I'm always the petulant observer of just internet stuff. That's always what I've been doing. I'm just here eternally sitting around quietly taking it all in. I'm never really trying to contribute much to anything. Um, but he never really was receptive to things. He was if anything, he wouldn't respond to anything individually, and if he did, it was usually just like a hey, cut it out, kind of thing. So I guess my biggest regret isn't really so much a regret as much as it is like a man, I wish things were different. I wish he was a little more receptive. I wish, he was a little bit. Yeah, if wishes were fishes, the world would be an ocean, as good old JR would say. So we're not going to fucking wish about things. T2 is gone. I wish he was still around, but we're not going to wish because he's gone. And I unfortunately have the unfortunate task of just sort of moving on from this. And I've been moving on from a lot of really fucked up things lately. And this is just another one. And I don't like it as much as I don't like the other ones. So unfortunately, I'm getting a little bit of experience with this, and I'm getting a little bit jaded, and I'm getting a little bit sore, and I'm getting a little bit, what's that word? Pissed off, depressed, jaded, fucked up, whatever that word is. I'm not doing great with all the shit going on around me, and the T2 thing, for whatever reason, it's not like the T2 thing was the straw that broke the camel's back, for sure. The T2 thing is mostly just like a, damn, let's reflect a little bit type of thing. And reflecting when all these things have gone wrong and how I wish things were so much more different, it's never good. You never want to be wishing for things when things are bad, because when you wish for things when things are bad, you get down that things cannot be the way they were or the way you want them to be. Um, Back in the day, I used to watch T2 all the time. He used to pontificate about the afterlife quite often, actually. And as you go through life, you sort of realize that you do that a lot yourself. You read about fictional characters getting their throats slashed in fucking Game of Thrones or just books or fantasy or in video games. You mow down fucking hordes of enemies and stuff. And the whole point for a lot of this stuff is life has to be taken for things to move on. And when you look at like all these different the way that death is just sort of like not glorified in the media, not certainly not like, praised or loved or, wished for in the media or anything like that, but like how death is just sort of central to everything, but it's never happening to you because you're alive to see it. You're doing great. You're hanging on. You're doing what you can to stay in this world and, eat your food and type your words and scroll on your shitty little fucking phone and lose brain cells. You're hanging in there. Good job. But all these death things that you see, they're never happening to you because you're here. You sort of like, I don't know if the word is compartmentalized. I'm not sure if that's really applicable here, but it's so distant to you that it's not worth thinking about. So if it's not worth thinking about, then when you see it right in front of you, for some reason, I guess, at least personally, it's still not worth thinking about. I'll get there when I get there. And lately, I've gotten a few dental things done for the first time in my life, and it's the first time I've ever had a numbing agent applied anywhere. And feeling that for whatever reason really did reassure me about like any sort of major illness I might be receiving or any sort of major injury or grievous wound that I might receive in the future that might cause me to get, infected and die or whatever. The amount of pain relief and lack of feeling that I had from very invasive like drills and shit in my mouth and like the gums and in the fucking tooth and all that shit. The amount of blood I was losing, all that stuff. Wisdom teeth, like if you're wondering, for at least one of them, wisdom teeth. That was not fun. But for all that, like just feeling how numb I was to such an invasive, such a fucked up feeling that I should be feeling forever because of how like gross and fucking awful it was. For whatever reason, that numbing agent really gave me comfort. And that no matter what happens, at the very least, at the very end, I can be on some good shit and I won't feel a thing. And for whatever reason, that really did like help me with my fear of death because I believe we are all afraid of death in some way. For me, I'm not necessarily afraid of the act of dying, especially not now that I know how effective numbing agents can be. But I'm definitely afraid of missing what is going to happen after I'm gone. Much like T2 at the very end of his life there, his friend basically was saying like he was trying to finish a trilogy of books before the end, and he was always grumbling and kind of mad that he wouldn't be able to read certain books after he's gone. Books that aren't out yet, books that he was waiting on, parts of a series that he wanted to finish. He's not going to get the chance to do that anymore. That's really the big fear for me. And seeing T2, of all people, succumb to such a similar fear, maybe not fear, but concern at the end of the life there, doesn't look good for my prospects either because I want to see a lot of things. I want to do a lot of things still. Seeing T2 not able to enjoy food after that was like his big thing. His whole life was just like, fuck yeah, pizza, shit like that. I say fuck yeah, pizza too. I'm not exactly the skinniest, most in shape man in the world. I love to eat. And the fact that T2 was robbed of his appetite for the last, 8 months of his life, and he wasn't even able to keep things down for the last 3 months of his life. That is terrifying to me because I love eating, and I cannot imagine a time in my life where I don't like eating. But it's, everybody at the end doesn't have much of an appetite, apparently. There's not many people who just, slowly succumb to something, who are just like, hey, fuck yeah, let's eat some pastrami. It's always just a slow decline of everything. And eventually your appetite goes and everything goes. And seeing it sort of happen in real time to somebody who, for better or for worse, I did look up to, it was definitely odd. And I'm not celebratory about it. I'm not really mournful about it either. I really am just sort of stunned. And it's gonna take a few days, I think, for me to really process everything, because obviously, if I see his funeral procession and all that stuff, or if it's streamed like they're planning on doing, that'll definitely hammer it home a little bit more, and I can be like, damn, it's really happened, and I can move on from this. I never cried when my grandma died. I always felt terrible about that. I've always felt like there was something fucking broken in my mind that I wasn't able to do that, because she essentially raised me. When my grandfather passed not too long ago, I also felt a little strange, because he and I were so similar just in personality, and it was, again, very sudden, and it was kind of a tragic end for him, because he sort of was in a place he didn't want to be, and nobody was there for him at the very end, because he was a very private person, and it was very, very rapid, so he didn't necessarily have the time or the personality to reach out. Yeah, death is all around me lately, and this is something that I do want to bring up at the very end of all of this, because I think I am done here. I'm not really sure what the point of all this was. I think it was to organize my own thoughts a little bit, and perhaps that helped a bit. But there's this one theory that not even a theory, there's this one sort of worldview that I saw one time. I believe it was actually originated from a comment in a YouTube video where it was talking about, what's her name? The French lady who lived longer than anyone who's ever been recorded to live. 119 years or something like that. And there was a comment in that video that I was watching that said something, I don't remember verbatim what it was, but it was along the lines of, she was born in a literally completely different world. When she was born, a completely different group of human beings existed on the earth than when she died. Because it's something that I've noticed literally every year of my life. Every time somebody passes, every time somebody close to me passes, every time some celebrity passes, every time somebody around me passes, like T2 now. When I was born, way back in the 90s now, I was born, and there was a gigantic number of people on the earth, about 8 billion people, right? Well, as I somehow gain years in this world, longevity, there's every single day one of those people that was on the earth when I was born passes away while I'm still here. And another new person who wasn't here is born to, effectively replace that person. So, logically speaking, the oldest person in the world at any given moment is the only person who stands on top of the mountain of dead human bodies and says, I'm looking out to a new future. And everybody else below that person was part of the past that person inhabited and will soon not inhabit anymore. I'm not really sure how to explain how I view this sort of worldview, but I do believe it's very beautiful that the oldest person in the world, no matter who it is or when it happens, you experience a completely different crop of humanity at the very end of your life, when you're the only one left from when you were born. There's somebody right now who's the oldest person on Earth who made it that far. A lot of us aren't going to make it that far. In fact, very few of us will. In fact, infinitesimally small fucking amount of us will make it that far. It's so weird that the longer you live, the closer you get to that, you know? And the more evidence piles up, Michael Jackson, Billy Mays, fucking Alex Trebek, T2Darlantan, all these YouTubers, my family, all my friends, these people that I grew up, knowing. Hulk Hogan, for fuck's sake. Soon Arnold. All these people I know. As long as I maintain life in this world, I will get inching closer and closer to the end of being the oldest person in the world and having everybody else around me when I was alive, when I was first born, every single one of them will be gone. To me, that's super fucked up and like just a weird, sort of profound way of absorbing loss. Like, okay, you are alive in this world. This is bound to happen. I'm not sure how to explain it any better than that. And I'm also very tired, so I don't think I could, even if I wanted to. Through this whole T2 thing, it's kind of given me a new perspective on the YouTube stuff as well. I used to be very anti-fan. I can't believe you guys were my fan. Huh? How are you a fan of me? I'm so stupid and I'm useless, and I can't believe you're a fan of anything. And go fuck yourself. That was kind of my whole outlook back then. But like, it is really nice to have you guys around. I'm not gonna lie. Whoever's listening to this, hey, we're one step closer to the end, brother. Take care, everyone.